Admiral Taewon Park stood at the large window of his office aboard the UES Defiant. The stars stretched out before him, cold and distant. His reflection in the glass showed a man with tired eyes and a firm jaw. 20 years in Earth's space navy had left its mark on him. "Admiral, the reports are ready," said his aide, handing him a tablet. Taewon nodded and took the device. The screen showed images of unknown ships at the edge of human space, large, smooth vessels that moved with perfect precision. The Galactic Empire had finally come. For decades, humans knew they were being watched. The Empire, a group of 30 alien species, had kept their distance, calling Earth a developing civilization. But now they had come forward, asking for a meeting. Taewon did not trust this sudden interest. He had fought in the Mars Uprising, a bloody war that finally united all humans under one flag. That war taught him that peace often came at a high price. "How long until they reach us?" Taewon asked. "Their main ship will be here in 6 hours, sir." The admiral sighed and set down the tablet. "And Ambassador Kim?" "She arrives in 2 hours." Taewon nodded. "Good. Make sure her quarters are ready, and I want all weapon systems checked before the Empire gets here." "Do you expect trouble, sir?" Taewon's mouth tightened. "I always expect trouble, Lieutenant. That's how I stayed alive this long." Ambassador Ji-young Kim stepped off her shuttle and onto the Defiant. At 45, she was Earth's most skilled diplomat. Her simple black suit and short hair gave her a serious look, but her eyes were sharp and missed nothing. "Ambassador Kim, welcome aboard," Taewon said with a slight bow. Ji-young smiled. "Admiral Park, it's been too long. The Mars Peace Conference, wasn't it?" 5 years ago, he confirmed. "I wish this meeting was under better circumstances." They walked through the ship's corridors, crew members stepping aside and saluting as they passed. "Tell me honestly," Ji-young said in a low voice. "How bad is it?" Taewon led her into a secure room where they could talk freely. The walls were plain metal, with just a table and chairs inside. "The Empire has brought 15 ships. Only one is coming to meet us. The others are staying at the edge of our system." Ji-young frowned. "That doesn't sound like a friendly visit." "It's not," Taewon agreed. He touched a control, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed the positions of the Empire's ships. They're positioned for a quick attack. If talks fail, they could hit 3 of our colonies within hours. "Do we know what they want?" "Officially, they say they want to welcome humanity to the galactic community." Taewon's face hardened. "Unofficially, our spies say they've labeled us a potential threat that needs to be controlled." Ji-young studied the hologram. "Their technology is far beyond ours." "Yes, but they don't know humans very well." Taewon smiled without humor. They'd never had to fight a species that evolved through constant warfare. A soft beep interrupted them. Taewon checked his communicator. "The Empire's ship has increased speed. They'll be here in 4 hours, not 6. Ji-young straightened her jacket. "Then we'd better prepare. What's your assessment, Admiral? Can we win if this turns to war?" Taewon looked her directly in the eyes. "No, not with conventional tactics." "And with unconventional tactics." The Admiral's face turned grim. "Then the Empire will learn why picking a fight with humans is the worst mistake they could make." On the main screen of the Defiance bridge, the Empire's ship grew larger. A massive, gleaming structure that dwarfed humanity's finest vessel. First contact was about to begin, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The meeting room on the Defiant was large but felt small with the Imperial delegation inside. High executors' racks stood taller than any human, with blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. 4 guards flanked him, each carrying weapons that made Taewon's security team nervous. Ambassador Ji-young Kim sat calmly at the table, her aide Hyun-woo Han beside her. Hyun-woo looked ordinary. Average height, simple black uniform, but his eyes missed nothing. He was one of Earth's best military intelligence officers, chosen specifically for this mission. The Galactic Empire welcomes humanity to the greater community of civilized species, Zrax said. His voice had an odd echo, as if two people were speaking at once. We have watched your development with great interest. We appreciate your attention. Jiyoung replied with a polite smile. Earth looks forward to peaceful relations between our peoples. Zrax made a gesture that might have been a smile. Peace is our aim as well. For 50,000 years, the Empire has maintained order across 17 sectors of space. Admiral Taewon noticed the Imperial Guards shift positions slightly, moving to strategic points around the room. Their movements were too precise to be casual. The Empire offers humanity a place in our grand society. Zrax continued. As a protectorate species, you will receive our guidance, protection, and access to certain technologies deemed appropriate for your development level. Jiyoung's smile didn't waver, but Taewon saw her hands tighten slightly on the table. And what would humanity offer in return? She asked. Compliance with imperial regulations, resource quotas from your mining operations, and a modest contribution to the Imperial Defense Force. Hyunwoo spoke for the first time. What percentage of our resources would these quotas require? Zrax seemed annoyed at being addressed by an aide. Merely 70% of rare earth metals and 30% of water ice, a small price for imperial protection. Taewon nearly laughed. Those numbers would cripple Earth's economy and colonies. Jiyoung remained composed. This is a significant decision for our people. We would need to consult with Earth's leadership before giving an answer. This clearly surprised Zrax. His skin changed color slightly, darkening at the edges. Consultation. The terms are standard for all new protectorates. Acceptance is expected. Nevertheless, Jiyoung said firmly, we require time to consider your generous offer. Tension filled the room. The Imperial Guard's hands moved closer to their weapons. Taewon subtly signaled his own security team to be ready. After a long pause, Zrax spoke. You have 3 Earth days to provide your answer. The Empire is patient, but not infinitely so. 3 days will be sufficient, Jiyoung said with a bow of her head. Thank you for your understanding. The Imperial delegation left the room, their movements stiff with barely contained anger. Once they were gone, Taewon turned to Jiyoung. That went about as expected. Hyunwoo pulled out a small device and swept the room for listening devices. Clear, he announced after a minute. Now for the real discussion, Taewon said. He activated a screen showing intercepted Imperial communications. They've already moved ships into position near Mars, Europa, and Titan. They're planning a pacification operation, regardless of our answer. Jiyoung frowned. They never intended to give us a choice. No, Taewon agreed. This was just a formality. In 3 days, they expect us to either surrender or be conquered. Hyunwoo studied the ship movements. Their tactics are predictable. They've used the same approach on 30 other worlds. And they've never lost, Jiyoung pointed out. Taewon's face hardened. They've never fought humans before. Jiyoung stood up, decision made. I need to speak with the President and Security Council immediately. Can you establish a secure link? Already done, Taewon said. They're waiting for us. As they walked to the secure communications room, Jiyoung asked quietly, do you think we have a chance, Admiral? Taewon thought about the wars he'd fought, the brutal lessons humanity had learned through centuries of conflict. The Empire thinks they're dealing with just another species to conquer, he said. We need to show them exactly what they're facing if they choose war with humanity. On the main view screen, Earth shone like a blue jewel against the darkness. In 3 days, it would either bow to imperial rule or face an enemy with superior technology and numbers. But numbers and technology weren't everything. The Empire was about to learn that the hard way. The meeting room on the Defiant was large but felt small with the Imperial delegation inside. High Executor Zrax stood taller than any human, with blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. 4 guards flanked him, each carrying weapons that made Taewon's security team nervous. Ambassador Jiyoung Kim sat calmly at the table, her aide Hyunwoo Han beside her. Hyunwoo looked ordinary, average height, simple black uniform, but his eyes missed nothing. He was one of Earth's best military intelligence officers, chosen specifically for this mission. The Galactic Empire welcomes humanity to the greater community of civilized species, Zrax said. His voice had an odd echo, as if 2 people were speaking at once. We have watched your development with great interest. We appreciate your attention. Jiyoung replied with a polite smile. Earth looks forward to peaceful relations between our peoples. Zrax made a gesture that might have been a smile. Peace is our aim as well. For 50,000 years, the Empire has maintained order across 17 sectors of space. Admiral Taewon noticed the Imperial Guards shift positions slightly, moving to strategic points around the room. Their movements were too precise to be casual. The Empire offers humanity a place in our grand society, Zrax continued. As a protectorate species, you will receive our guidance, protection, and access to certain technologies deemed appropriate for your development level. Jiyoung's smile didn't waver, but Taewon saw her hands tighten slightly on the table. And what would humanity offer in return? She asked. Compliance with imperial regulations, resource quotas from your mining operations, and a modest contribution to the Imperial Defense Force. Hyunwoo spoke for the first time. What percentage of our resources would these quotas require? Zrax seemed annoyed at being addressed by an aide. Merely 70% of rare earth metals and 30% of water ice, a small price for imperial protection. Taewon nearly laughed. Those numbers would cripple Earth's economy and colonies. Jiyoung remained composed. This is a significant decision for our people. We would need to consult with Earth's leadership before giving an answer. This clearly surprised Zrax. His skin changed color slightly, darkening at the edges. Consultation. The terms are standard for all new protectorates. Acceptance is expected. Nevertheless, Jiyoung said firmly, we require time to consider your generous offer. Tension filled the room. The Imperial Guard's hands moved closer to their weapons. Taewon subtly signaled his own security team to be ready. After a long pause, Zrax spoke. You have 3 Earth days to provide your answer. The Empire is patient, but not infinitely so. 3 days will be sufficient, Jiyoung said with a bow of her head. Thank you for your understanding. The Imperial delegation left the room, their movements stiff with barely contained anger. Once they were gone, Taewon turned to Jiyoung. That went about as expected. Hyunwoo pulled out a small device and swept the room for listening devices. Clear, he announced after a minute. Now for the real discussion, Taewon said. He activated a screen showing intercepted Imperial communications. They've already moved ships into position near Mars, Europa, and Titan. They're planning a pacification operation, regardless of our answer. Jiyoung frowned. They never intended to give us a choice. No, Taewon agreed. This was just a formality. In 3 days, they expect us to either surrender or be conquered. Hyunwoo studied the ship movements. Their tactics are predictable. They've used the same approach on 30 other worlds. And they've never lost, Jiyoung pointed out. Taewon's face hardened. They've never fought humans before. Jiyoung stood up, decision made. I need to speak with the President and Security Council immediately. Can you establish a secure link? Already done, Taewon said. They're waiting for us. As they walked to the secure communications room, Jiyoung asked quietly, do you think we have a chance, Admiral? Taewon thought about the wars he'd fought, the brutal lessons humanity had learned through centuries of conflict. The Empire thinks they're dealing with just another species to conquer, he said. We need to show them exactly what they're facing if they choose war with humanity. On the main view screen, Earth shone like a blue jewel against the darkness. In 3 days, it would either bow to imperial rule or face an enemy with superior technology and numbers. But numbers and technology weren't everything. The Empire was about to learn the hard way. The Imperial flagship loomed huge against the stars. Its smooth surface gleamed like polished metal, making the human shuttle look tiny and primitive by comparison. Ambassador Ji Kim sat calmly as their shuttle approached the docking bay. Beside her, Admiral Taewon checked his sidearm one last time before hiding it under his formal jacket. Hyun Han sat opposite them, a small black case on his lap. "They'll expect us to accept their terms," Ji Young said, "or at least to beg for better ones." Taewon nodded. "The surprise will be our advantage." "Are we ready?" Hyun asked, patting the case. "Earth is ready," Taewon replied grimly. "The question is whether the Empire is ready for us." The shuttle docked with a soft thud. Imperial guards met them. Tall blue-gray figures with weapons that seemed to be part of their arms. They led the humans through long, curved hallways to a grand meeting room. High executors' racks waited there with 5 other aliens. They sat on raised seats, looking down at the single table set for the humans. "Have you brought your acceptance of Imperial protection?" Zrax asked without greeting. Ji-young smiled pleasantly. "We've brought a response from Earth, but first, we would like to share something with you." She nodded to Hyunwoo, who opened his case and took out a small device. The Imperial guards moved forward, but Zrax held up a hand to stop them. "This is merely a historical record," Ji-young explained. "Before you decide Earth's fate, you should understand who you're dealing with." Hyunwoo activated the device. A hologram appeared, showing Earth's history of war. The World Wars, with millions dead. The Cold War, with 2 powers ready to destroy the planet. The Mars Uprising, where colonies fought for freedom with terrible weapons. "Your species seems very violent," said one of the Imperial officials with disgust. "We evolved through conflict," Taewon said. "It shaped us. Unlike your species, we weren't united by choice or natural cooperation. We fought our way to peace." The hologram showed scenes of destruction that made even the Imperial officials shift uncomfortably. "In our history," Ji-young continued, "those who tried to conquer humans have always faced the same problem. We don't surrender. Even when defeat seems certain, we fight on." Zrax leaned forward. "Impressive, but meaningless. Your weapons cannot match Imperial technology." "Technology isn't everything," Taewon replied. "The Empire fights wars to win territories and resources. Humans fight wars to survive. We don't have to win. We just have to make victory cost too much." The hologram changed to show Earth's nuclear arsenals, biological weapons, and self-destruct systems built into every major human colony. "We don't want war," Ji-young said firmly. "We want peace. But if you force war upon us, understand that humans don't fight to win. We fight to survive, at any cost." Zrax's skin darkened with anger. "Is this a threat?" "No," Ji-young replied calmly. "It's a history lesson." She pulled out a data tablet and slid it across the table. "Here is our counter-proposal. Earth will recognize the Empire, and we will trade with you. But we remain fully independent." One of the Imperial officials laughed. "You're not in a position to make demands." Taewon's face hardened. "Neither are you. Our fleets are already mobilized. Our colonies are prepared. If your ships approach Earth with hostile intent, they will face resistance unlike anything in your history." Zrax stood suddenly. "This is unacceptable. The Empire does not negotiate with lesser species." "Then the Empire has never met humans before," Ji-young said, standing equally tall despite being half Zrax's size. "We aren't asking for your permission to exist. We're offering you a chance to avoid a conflict that will harm us both." The room fell silent. For the first time in his long career, High Executor Zrax seemed unsure. "The Empire has conquered 30 worlds," he said finally. "We have never failed." "There's always a first time," Taewon replied quietly. "The question is whether you want to find out if humans will be that first." High Executor Zrax's skin turned a dark blue as anger washed over him. He raised his hand, and the Imperial guards moved forward. You dare to refuse Imperial protection. Zrax's voice echoed in the large room. Perhaps a demonstration of our power is needed. Before the guards could reach the humans, Hyunwoo touched another button on his device. The hologram changed, showing the inside of the Imperial flagship, engine rooms, weapon systems, and command centers. What is this? Demanded one of the Imperial officials. This is your ship, Hyunwoo said calmly. Every deck, every system, every weakness. We've been studying you while you watched us. A hologram zoomed in on critical systems, showing detailed schematics that even some of the Imperial crew hadn't seen. How did you get this information? Zrax asked, his voice lower now. Admiral Taewon smiled slightly. We sent infiltration drones disguised as maintenance units. They've been mapping your ships for weeks. The Imperial officials looked at each other with new concern in their eyes. Similar information exists for every Imperial vessel that entered our system, Taewon continued. Your shield frequencies, weapon ranges, engine cooling systems, we know them all. The room fell silent. For the first time, the Empire faced an enemy who had been preparing while pretending to be ignorant. This is not a threat, Jiyoung clarified, seeing the tension building. It's a demonstration. We know how powerful you are. We respect that power, but you should understand what you're facing if you choose war. One of the Imperial officials, older than the others, leaned forward. You could have attacked already if this information is real. Why didn't you? Because we don't want war, Jiyoung replied. Humans have had enough war in our history. We want peace, trade, and mutual respect. Zrax slammed his hand on his chair. The Empire does not bow to demands from primitive species. You will submit or what? Taewon interrupted. You'll attack. Destroy some of our colonies. Yes, you could do that. Your technology is superior. But ask yourself this. What happens after that first attack? A hologram changed again, showing human military tactics from past wars. Guerrilla fighting, scorched earth policies, last stand defenses where soldiers fought to the death. Humans don't fight like other species, Taewon said. We don't surrender when defeat seems certain. We adapt. We hide. We strike back in ways you won't expect. The older Imperial official was watching carefully now. You speak as if your defeat would not be the end. For humans, defeat is never the end, Jiyoung said. It's just the beginning of a new kind of war. Hyunwoo stepped forward, speaking directly to all the Imperial officials. If you declare war on humanity, we have one piece of advice. Run. Because we won't stop until either we are extinct or you are. The words hung in the air, simple but powerful. The Imperial officials looked shocked at such bluntness. Zrax stood up, clearly struggling to control his anger. You forget yourselves. The Empire has faced many enemies. All have fallen. All were fighting for victory, Taewon replied. Humans fight for survival. There's a difference. Jiyoung placed the data tablet with Earth's counter-proposal on the table again. We offer friendship and trade as equals. Consider it carefully before you choose war instead. The humans turned to leave, but Zrax called out, This meeting is not over. Yes, it is, Jiyoung said without turning back. You have our proposal. You have our warning. The next move is yours. As the human delegation walked out, Imperial guards followed them, uncertain whether to stop them or escort them. On the shuttle back to the Defiant, Hyunwoo checked his instruments. They're talking to their high command. All their ships are maintaining position. Did we convince them? Jiyoung asked. Taewon looked back at the Imperial flagship through the shuttle window. We made them doubt. For an empire that's never lost, doubt is a new experience. And now? Hyunwoo asked. Now we prepare, Taewon said grimly, because they either leave us in peace or learn why humans warned them to run. The Imperial War Council chamber was rarely used. For most of the Empire's 50,000 years, decisions about new worlds were simple. Offer protection, then conquer if refused. But today, 12 of the highest-ranking officials in the Empire sat around a large table, their faces showing something unusual concern. High Executor Zrax stood before them, his skin still dark with anger. The humans have refused our generous offer. They dare to demand equality with the Empire. The Imperial Sovereign, leader of all 30 species in the Empire, watched from the head of the table. Unlike the others, the Sovereign's face was calm, almost curious. "Tell us exactly what happened," the Sovereign said. As Zrax described the meeting, the Council listened carefully. When he mentioned the humans' detailed knowledge of Imperial ships, murmurs filled the room. Science Director Grix, a small gray alien with 6 eyes, spoke next. "I have studied the human historical records they provided. They are disturbing." He activated a display showing scenes from Earth's wars. Humans evolved through constant conflict. Their early history is filled with violence we can barely comprehend. "All species have wars," said Fleet Commander Vroon dismissively. "Not like this," Grix replied. "Imperial wars are fought for territory, resources, or power. Human wars are often fought for ideas, beliefs, or simple survival." The display showed World War I, the nuclear bombings, and the Cold War standoff. "Most concerning is this concept," Grix continued, highlighting certain data. "Humans call it mutually assured destruction. The idea that a losing power would destroy everything rather than accept defeat." The Council fell silent. Such a concept was alien to Imperial thinking. "They would destroy themselves rather than join us?" asked one official in disbelief. "They might," Grix confirmed. "And their warning about fighting until extinction, it wasn't empty words. Their history shows many examples of humans fighting hopeless battles to the last person." Fleet Commander Vroon stood up. "This changes nothing. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. I propose an immediate overwhelming assault on their main colonies. Show them the true power of the Empire." Several officials nodded in agreement. The Empire had never backed down before. But then General Klax, the oldest member of the Council, spoke. Though his voice was quiet, everyone listened. "In my 500 years serving the Empire, we have conquered many worlds, but we have never faced a species that evolved through constant warfare." He looked around the table slowly. The humans' warning was not bravado. It was a courtesy. They were telling us the truth about what war with them would mean. "Are you suggesting we accept their demands?" Zrax asked, incredulous. "I am suggesting we consider them," Klax replied. "There is no glory in a war that leaves both sides devastated." The Imperial Sovereign had remained silent, watching the debate. Now all eyes turned to the Empire's leader. "Science Director Grix," the Sovereign said. "In your analysis, what would be the cost of victory against humans?" Grix hesitated. "Even with our technological advantage, we would likely lose 30% of our fleet, and victory might not mean what we expect. Humans could continue fighting from hidden bases for decades." The Sovereign nodded slowly. "And the proposal for trade and mutual recognition. Unusual but not harmful to Imperial interests," Grix admitted. "They ask only to maintain independence while acknowledging Imperial authority in settled space." Fleet Commander Vroon couldn't contain himself. "This is unprecedented. The Empire does not negotiate with lesser species." "Perhaps," said the Sovereign, "that is why we have never met a species like humans before." The room fell silent again. "We need more information," the Sovereign decided finally. "Before we commit to full war or acceptance of their terms, we should test their resolve." "How?" asked Zrax. "A limited military action," the Sovereign replied. "Not against Earth itself, but one of their outer colonies. Let us see if their warnings are merely words, or if humans truly fight as their history suggests." The Council members nodded in agreement. A test would show whether humans deserved respect or conquest. Little did they know, this test would change the Empire forever. Red alert sirens blared through the Jupiter Defense Station. Commander Jinwu Kang ran to the command center, his face grim but determined. 20 years in Earth's space navy had prepared him for this day. "Status report," he shouted as he entered the bridge. "Imperial ships approaching, sir," replied his second-in-command. 5 cruisers and 15 smaller vessels. Jinwu nodded. The Empire had made its choice. "All stations, battle positions," he ordered, "and send the coded message to Earth. Operation Hornet's Nest is active." Jupiter, with its many moons and mining colonies, was humanity's most valuable off-Earth asset. The Empire had chosen their target well. Important enough to hurt, far enough from Earth to isolate. "They're hailing us, Commander," said the communications officer. The main screen showed an Imperial officer. "This is Captain Ftar of the Imperial Fleet. Your mining colonies are now under Imperial protection. Lower your defenses and prepare for occupation." Jinwu stepped forward. "This is Commander Kang of Earth Space Force. Jupiter and its moons are sovereign human territory. Any hostile action will be met with force." The Imperial captain smiled. "Your small fleet cannot hope to defeat us. Surrender now and avoid unnecessary deaths." "That's not how humans work," Jinwu replied, and cut the transmission. He turned to his crew. "We're outnumbered 5 to 1. But we have 3 advantages: knowledge of their ships, knowledge of this system, and they have no idea what humans are willing to do." The bridge crew nodded. They all knew the plan. "Begin Phase 1, Jinwu ordered. Earth's small defense fleet, just 12 ships, moved into position around Jupiter's moons. The Imperial vessels advanced confidently, their weapons ready. What happened next shocked the Imperial commanders. Instead of retreating or forming a defensive line, the human ships split into pairs and attacked from multiple directions. They flew dangerously close to Jupiter's radiation belts, using the deadly radiation as a shield. "They're insane," exclaimed an Imperial sensor operator. "That radiation will damage their own ships." Captain Xar watched in disbelief as human vessels threw Imperial ships into carefully planned traps. One human ship would appear vulnerable, then another would attack from behind, targeting the weak points they had identified in Imperial design. 3 hours into the battle, the humans had destroyed 4 Imperial vessels while losing only 2 of their own. But the Imperial advantage in numbers was still telling. Eventually, they began to corner the human ships. Lieutenant Min Seo Lee's vessel, the ESF Courage, took a direct hit to its engines. System failures cascaded through the ship. "We're losing power," reported his engineer. "We can't escape." Min Seo made a quick decision. All crew to escape pods. "Now, what about you, sir?" asked his tactical officer. "I'm staying. There's one more thing I can do." As the crew evacuated, Min Seo programmed a new course. With its last power, the damaged Courage accelerated directly toward the Imperial command vessel. "The human ship is on a collision course," shouted an Imperial officer. "They're going to ram us." Captain Xar couldn't believe it. Evasive maneuvers, maximum shields. But it was too late. The Courage crashed into the Imperial flagship, causing catastrophic damage to both vessels. It was the first of many suicide attacks that day. Across the battlefield, other damaged human ships followed Min Seo's example. Rather than surrender, they turned their vessels into weapons, targeting the most valuable Imperial ships. Commander Jinwu received reports of the attacks with a heavy heart. Good people were dying, but they were changing the course of the battle. "They're sacrificing their own people to win." An Imperial commander transmitted to his fleet. "How do you fight an enemy like that?" By the end of the day, the Imperial force was in retreat. Of their 20 ships, 11 were destroyed and 5 heavily damaged. The humans had lost 9 of their 12 vessels, but Jupiter remained free. As Jinwu sent the victory message to Earth, he knew this was just the beginning. The Empire had tested humanity, and humanity had answered with a clear message. "We warned you to run." 3 days after the battle at Jupiter, The Imperial War Council met again. The mood was very different now. No one spoke of easy victory anymore. 11 ships lost. Fleet Commander Vroom said in disbelief. Against a primitive fleet 1/5 our size. Science Director Grix nodded. The humans fought exactly as their history suggested they would. They used tactics we've never seen before. Suicide attacks. Radiation zones as weapons, targeting only our command ships. High Executor Zrax paced angrily. This changes nothing. We still have thousands of ships. We can crush them. At what cost? Asked General Klax. If they fight like this for a mining colony, imagine how they'll defend their homeworld. The Imperial Sovereign sat silently, listening to the debate. Finally, the leader spoke. What are the humans doing now? Nothing yet, Grix replied. They've reinforced their defenses but haven't counterattacked. Just then, an urgent message came in. The Sovereign opened it and frowned. It seems I was wrong. The humans are responding after all. On Earth, Chief Communications Officer Jae-hyun Yoon stood in the Global Broadcast Center. Around him, teams of technicians worked at their stations, preparing the most important transmission in human history. All channels ready, reported a technician. We can reach every Imperial world simultaneously. President Do-hyun Lee nodded. Begin transmission. Jae-hyun took a deep breath and activated the system. Across 30 worlds in the Galactic Empire, communication systems suddenly activated. In homes, public spaces, and government buildings, screens showed the same image. The battle at Jupiter. Imperial citizens watched in shock as human ships deliberately crashed into Imperial vessels. They saw the courage and sacrifice of Earth's defenders. Many had never seen Imperial ships defeated before. The images shifted to Earth's history. World wars. The struggle for freedom. Humans fighting against impossible odds and refusing to surrender. Then Admiral Taewon appeared on screen. He stood tall, his uniform neat, his face stern. People of the Galactic Empire, he began. My name is Admiral Taewon Park of Earth. 3 days ago, your ships attacked our Jupiter colonies. You believed we would surrender when faced with superior numbers and technology. The screen showed the retreating Imperial fleet. You were wrong. Throughout our history, humans have faced enemies who thought the same way. None of them exist anymore. Taewon's voice remained calm, but his words carried power. We don't want to be your enemies. We would rather be your allies. But make no mistake, if your leaders choose war, there will be no empire left when it's over. The screen showed Earth's combined fleets, now moving to defensive positions. Ask your leaders if that's a price they're willing to pay. Ask them why they fear giving one small planet its freedom, when the alternative is a war like none they've ever fought. The transmission ended with a simple message in the Imperial language: peace or extinction. Choose wisely. On 30 worlds, people turned to each other in confusion and fear. For 1,000 years, they had believed the Empire was invincible. Now, a small planet of warriors had shown that was not true. In the Imperial War Council, silence fell as the transmission ended. The Sovereign looked around the table. This message went to every world in the Empire, the leader said quietly. Our citizens are already asking questions. This is treasonous, Zrax shouted. They're trying to turn our people against us. They're trying to avoid a war, General Klax corrected, by making our people understand what it would cost. The Sovereign stood up. For the first time in memory, the Empire faced a crisis it couldn't solve with force alone. I want to meet these humans, the Sovereign decided, not their ambassadors or admirals. I want to understand what kind of species could do this. Fleet Commander Vroon looked shocked. You would lower yourself to meet them personally. Yes, the Sovereign replied. Because either we find a way to make peace with these humans, or we prepare for a war that might end the Empire as we know it. Across Imperial space, the question spread. Who were these humans who dared to challenge the Empire? And why had their leaders kept the truth from them for so long? The meeting room on Neutral Station was unlike anything built by either humans or the Empire. Located in orbit around Earth's moon, it was designed to put both sides on equal footing. No weapons were allowed. No guards stood by. Just two tables facing each other under a dome that showed the stars. Admiral Taewon and Ambassador Ji-young waited nervously. No human had ever met the Imperial Sovereign before. Few even knew what the leader of 30 worlds looked like. "Do you think this will work?" Ji-young asked quietly. Taewon watched Earth through the dome. "It has to. We've shown them we won't surrender. Now we need to show them we can be reasonable." The door opened, and the Imperial delegation entered. In the center walked a being unlike the others, smaller than expected, with skin that shifted colors like flowing water. This was the Imperial Sovereign, ruler of the largest power in known space. Both sides sat down. For a moment, no one spoke. "You could have attacked again after Jupiter," the Sovereign said finally. "Your ships were positioned to strike 3 of our bases. Why didn't you?" "Because we meant what we said," Ji-young replied. "We don't want war." The Sovereign's skin rippled with colors. In 50,000 years, no species has ever defeated an Imperial fleet and then offered peace. "Humans are different," Taewon said simply. "Yes," the Sovereign agreed. "We've learned that. Your history, your tactics, your willingness to die rather than submit, all are unique in our experience." The Sovereign leaned forward. "But what truly surprised us was your message to our people. No one has ever spoken directly to Imperial citizens before. We wanted them to understand what their leaders were risking," Ji-young explained. "A war that would hurt everyone." "It worked," the Sovereign admitted. "For the first time in my rule, people are asking questions, demanding answers, even protesting." Taewon and Ji-young exchanged surprised looks. "The Empire has ruled through respect and fear for millennia," the Sovereign continued. "We bring order to chaos, protection to the weak. But perhaps," the leader paused, "perhaps we've grown too comfortable in our power." The discussion continued for hours. The humans explained Earth's desire for independence, but also for peaceful relations. The Sovereign described the Empire's need for stability, but acknowledged that their system of conquest was no longer working. Finally, the Sovereign made a decision. Earth will not become a protectorate. Instead, you will join the Empire as the first equal partner in our history. "Equal?" Ji-young asked. "What does that mean?" "It means you keep your independence, your military, your culture, but you also gain access to Imperial technology, trade routes, and protection when needed." Taewon frowned. "And what does the Empire gain?" The Sovereign's skin turned a deep blue. "Your perspective, your martial knowledge, your humanity. The Empire has grown stagnant. We need something new." The agreement was formal but simple. Earth would join the Empire not as a subject, but as a partner. Humans would share some technologies and resources, but far less than the original demand. In return, they would gain access to the stars. As the meeting ended, the Sovereign spoke quietly to an aide. "For the first time, I believe our Empire might actually last forever." Admiral Taewon, overhearing, allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps, he thought, but it will never be the same. 5 years later, Ambassador Ji-young stood in the same Neutral Station, now a busy hub of activity. Beside her, Admiral Taewon watched as 3 ships docked, vessels from previously unknown species seeking help against a threat beyond the Empire's borders. "They don't believe the Empire will protect non-members," Ji-young explained. "They've heard stories of how the Empire treats other worlds." Taewon nodded. "Then we'll need to show them things have changed." The representatives entered, clearly nervous. They looked at the human and Imperial flags flying side by side with surprise. "Welcome to Neutral Station," Ji-young greeted them. "I'm Ambassador Kim, human representative to the Imperial Council." "Can the Empire truly help us?" asked one visitor. We've heard it only conquers, never defends. The Empire has changed, Jiam replied with a smile. And so have we. Taewon stepped forward, now wearing a uniform that combined human and imperial designs. We warned them to run, he said, using the phrase that had become famous across the galaxy. Now our enemies run together. As the newcomers relaxed, Taewon looked out at the stars. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not through surrender, but by standing firm. The Empire had found renewal not through conquest, but through partnership. Sometimes, the strongest warnings led to the most lasting peace.